Joining us on the panel today, we have Charles Savino, who, as I said, has the upper hand over Mike because these are going to be his slides. Charlie serves as Executive Vice President of CDS Market Research. In this role, he has overall responsibility for performance of the firm's professional consulting services. Mr. Savino brings 35 years of project management, community planning, research, and land development to CDS. Before joining CDS, he served as Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Greater Houston Partnership. Those prior roles included top management experience in real estate development, community planning, and research. He was Executive Vice President of Houston-based real estate management and development firm. That was Ned Holmes' firm, wasn't it? No? Somebody else? Okay. In the early 80s, he was the Executive Director and President of the West Houston Association. No coincidence here. His prior experience includes 5 years of Director of Research at the Center, at the Rice Center for Research. And so Charlie's got a lot of background in this stuff. He's a recognized expert. He has a master's degree in planning and in civil engineering, as well as an undergraduate degree in civil engineering. Ted Nelson. Ted Nelson is Central Regional President of the Newland Real Estate Group. Ted provides operational and senior leadership to the development of Newland's residential master plan communities, retail and urban mixed-use real estate projects in Texas and the Midwest. Ted leads the growth strategy for the Central Region through oversight and coordination of acquisition opportunities, including sourcing, due diligence, contracting, and closing all acquisition activity. Excuse me. Prior to joining Newland, Ted served as Vice President and General Manager for TerraBrook, TerraBrook's Houston operation, and in a regional capacity in Texas. He began his career with the Woodlands. This seems to be a really inbred crowd here, doesn't it? He began his career with the Woodlands Corporation in Residential Development Division. He also served in several capacities with American General Land Development, which was the predecessor to TerraBrook on its Houston operations. He has a bachelor's degree in administration from the University of Texas, but I decided to have him on the panel anyway. And he did postgraduate work in the University of Houston. He's been a long-term member of the Urban Land Institute, and he is a past chairman of the West Houston Association. Last but certainly not least, before I get to our surprise guest, David Weekley. David Weekley is chairman of David Weekley Homes. He began his home building company at the age of 23, a couple of years ago. Okay. The company has been named to the Fortune magazine's 100 Best Companies to Work For list 7 times. David Weekley Homes has earned multiple honors in the areas of product design, marketing, management, and has closed over $690 million worth of new homes in 14 different cities in 2009. And he got a pretty nice plug from Tom at lunch. As a community leader, David has served on the vestry of Palmer Memorial Church and is past chairman and current executive committee member of the Sam Houston Area Council of Boy Scouts. He has a long list of other things that he's involved in. I don't know how he has time to run a big home building company when he does all these other things. But we welcome him greatly to this panel because he's going to add a lot of depth from the home builder standpoint. Last but not least, Mike Inselman. I think everybody in this room probably knows who Mike Inselman is. Mike is president of Metro Studies, probably the country's leading research company, but only on single family, Charlie, just on the single family part. I'm going to pay heavily for this, I'm sure. I don't have a bio on Mike because he's a last-minute ad, but as I said, I think everybody in the room probably knows who Mike is. And he was very reluctant to do this, I must tell you. I asked him to do it, and he said no. So I went and told Ted, and I said, Ted, go talk to Mike. Get Mike to join us on this panel. And I knew Ted would do it because Ted would love to have the opportunity to ask him questions without having to pay him for it. So we're going to have the opportunity to hear Ted and David both ask Mike questions as part of this panel. But the first, I'm going to ask Charlie to kind of lay the framework, if you will, set the table, and give us some historical growth information that shows us where we have grown, how we've grown, and then maybe raise a few questions that we might want to deal with during our conversation. Now, the format is going to be a little bit different. Charlie's is going to be the only presentation. I have some questions for each of the panel up here to kind of kick things off, but we want this to be an interactive session with the audience. So when Charlie's finished, we'll raise the lights. We've got some microphones, so please feel free to ask a question, because at ULI, we think sharing information, not just throwing it out there, but sharing in the discussion is an important way to participate and to learn. So, Charlie, it's all yours.
Where's your glasses? Thank you, David. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to try to do this fairly quickly. You know, we've all heard a lot of talk about the suburbs recently. And some of that talk has been kind of interesting. Christopher Linebarger suggests that they're the next slums. People pick up that. The Pittsburgh Post-Dispatch said, are they our new slums? Time magazine goes further. They're basically saying that, you know, the suburbs are dying. Even our local architect, Scott Ziegler, Scott here today? No? Says that the sprawl in the suburbs have lost their sizzle. James Howard Kunstler went further. He actually did a movie called The End of Suburbia. And even our president has said the days when we're just building sprawl is over. So there's the picture of the death of our suburbs. But I don't really think the suburbs are dying. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of background on the most recent growth trends in Houston, just to give you a sense of what's going on overall. What I'm going to do for some of these presentation is to break the region up into these rings and sectors. The inner ring is the area inside the Loop 610, and the middle ring goes from the 610 Loop out to really Highway 6, 1960, and on the east side to about 146. And then the remainder, the far ring, is the area outside of that middle ring. And this shows where the population is living today as it relates to those rings. The population inside Loop 610 is about 6% of the region. More than a half of the region's population lives in that middle ring, and the remaining 37% or so live in the far ring. So here's where jobs are today, and the jobs are totally critical for the future of residential, as I'll talk about in a minute. 21% of the jobs are inside the 610 Loop, 5% in the Central Business District. The middle ring has the largest number of jobs, and it's been growing fairly rapidly for some time. And the far ring includes the lowest density of jobs, but it's still 24% of the jobs in the region. And as everybody knows, Houston really has developed as a polycentric kind of community. This map shows, our take on a number of existing major regional activity centers, some emerging activity centers, some that are primarily retail. But what you notice is they're all over the region. And most of them are in the middle ring, with just a few exceptions, the downtown and so on. And this chart shows roughly the number of jobs in each of those major business activity centers. If you add all those up, that adds up to about 670,000 jobs, about 26% of the total number of jobs in the Houston region. If you added up all those spots on the map, you'd be talking about 60 to 65% of the jobs in the region. So what you can see is jobs are really moving out. And it's that balance between jobs and population that I think I want to talk about, kind of the focus of what I'm going to be talking about today. We're going to start